Welcome to Inline Styling, Part 4. The essential outcomes for Chapter 2. You will create and design web pages by applying inline CSS styling to HTML tags and section tags by inserting the language, image browser tab, and metadata tags, distinguishing block elements from inline elements, establishing web page sections, styling web page sections and HTML tags using the proper values and property names, creating a button using JavaScript programming language. Welcome to Section 2-4, the style property value for inline CSS. Welcome to CSS styling. With the introduction of HTML5, all aesthetic styling features now use CSS3. There are 3 different ways to style your web page. First, you may use inline style sheets. These style sheets are inserted right into the HTML element. There is the internal style sheets. These stylings are placed between the opening and closing head tag and uses the style tag. The external style sheets create a text file that can be imported into a document. In this chapter, you will be using inline style sheets. The hierarchy of applying CSS styling. When a browser reads code, it goes down the page, reading each line of text line by line and responds accordingly. You do not see this happen because it is done extremely fast. When dealing with CSS styling, the browser will first apply the external text file. Second, it will then apply the internal style sheets. And last, it will apply the inline style sheets. So if you have used only external text files, it will only apply this form of styling to the web page. However, if you have used external text files and internal style sheets, the browser applies the internal style sheets, which overrides styling in the external text files. If you use all 3 CSS stylings, the browser will first apply inline style sheets, overriding any contradictions in the internal style sheets and the external text files. Then it will apply the internal style sheets, which will override any of the coding in the external text file. And lastly, it will apply the external text file. Inline styling. Inline styling uses the HTML tags to style. With the HTML tag, you will need the style property value followed by its value, or what we call its name. The styling you want to add to the text, all right? So the style property value comes after the opening HTML tag. Following the style property values comes the equal sign, followed by an opening quotation mark, then the property name and the closing quotation mark. So if you read this heading 1 tag, you're going to see there is our HTML tag. Here is our style property value, followed by the property name. In this case, we are changing the color of the text Hello World to the color blue using hexadecimal numbers. So if you look at the example, you're going to see that Hello World is now in the color blue. There are 3 different ways you can change font size. You can use pixels. You may use EM. EM is equivalent to the width of the letter M. One EM is equivalent to the standard 12-point used in Microsoft Word, and I highly recommend that you use EMs. They're easier to deal with and their numbers are lower. You can also use percent. It will change the font size based on percentage. So styling the font or text on a page. There are two different types of font families that you can use, serif font and sans serif font. Serif fonts have hooks at the end of each letter, and they usually are used to show contrast or to highlight a small section on a page. Sans serifs do not have hooks at the end. Sans serif is used for the major type of font used because it's easier to read than serif font. So the majority of your web page should use sans serif, where headings and side headings should be in serif. Okay, here are your rules for what type of font family to use. Text on a page uses sans serif. Why? Easier to read. Headings on a page or side headings on a page, they use serif font. Why? Because it makes the headings stand out on the page, and since the headings are larger than your regular text, then reading the serif font is not as difficult. So, looking at an example, here we have our sans serif. These are our headings and side headings. And then if we look at our unordered list, you're going to notice that it's serif, and then the rest of the body has serif font as well, making it very simple to read. How do we access a font family? If you open up a Word document, select the drop-down arrow for the font family, click on the font family that you want, place your cursor inside the font family search box, and then you're going to use Control-C and then Control-V to paste the name into the font family. That's the fastest way to do it. You don't have to worry about misspellings, and it's less error. Now, sometimes the font family that's given in Word might not work in HTML. So if you run into the problem of your font family not changing, try a different font to see if that is the problem. Changing the font color of text. To add color to a text, you want to use the hexadecimal number. To access the hexadecimal number, you can use any chart or wheel that provides you with the number. If you go to our class website, there are links for various types of color charts or wheels that you can use. Just copy and paste the color to your Notepad++. I usually go to the W3 School color wheel. I find it easier. If you select on a color, then you have your lighter and darker colors that you can also choose from. All you have to do is click on the hexadecimal number to the right, and then just copy that into your Notepad++. Okay, let's look at the body HTML tag. What kind of property values or styling will we use for the body tag? Inside the opening body tag, you will style property values followed by their property names. You want the background color, which will put background color to your web page. You want margin and order matters. You always want to go clockwise. Start with the top margin, right margin, bottom margin, left margin. The font family, the type of font family style you want for your text and headings on a page. Font size is the size of the font that you want. Then you have your property setup of all the property values. When you only use one property value, you do not need to end with a semicolon. If you have more than one property value, each property value ends with a semicolon. There is no limit to the number of property names you can use in a HTML tag. What is the proper setup of property values? If we look at this H2 tag, HTML tag, this is where we have one property value. The property value style equals, and in quotation marks, we have the property name, font family, colon, space, Baker Fields, comma, serif. Do I have to put serif in there? Yes. The reason being is if the particular computer that opens up a web page does not have Bakersfield, it will then look for the next serif text. So this is one property value. Notice that you don't need to end this property value with a semicolon because there's only one property value. However, if you look at the body tag, you're going to see that we have more than one property value. So we start with style equals, and then quotation mark, background dash color, colon, space, we put in the hexadecimal number, then semicolon, space, margin dash top, colon, space, 5 pixels, space, margin dash right, colon, space, 125 pixels, semicolon, margin dash bottom, colon, space, 5px, semicolon, space, margin dash left, colon, space, 125px, semicolon, space, font dash family, colon, space, Arial, comma, space, sans serif, semicolon, space, font dash size, colon, space, 1.2 em, semicolon, and then our ending quotation mark. So if you look at the difference between one property value and having more than one property value, you need a semicolon after each one of those property values in the body tag. Whereas in the H2 tag, there's only one property value, so you do not need to do that. Also note, when you have multiple property values, you do not have to keep writing the style property value. You only have to use it once. The div property values. All right, if we look at the div2 property value, notice that we were able to add a background color. So we have div space ID equals quotation mark div2 quotation mark. And then after that we do space. We can now add the styling for the background color. So we can type in styles equals quote background dash color colon space and then the hexadecimal number. And notice since this is the only only one property value, we do not need a semicolon. The ID equals div2 is not a property value. Only the style property value counts as that. And if you go down and look at the website example, that div section now has a background color that is all green. In the last section, I introduced the span HTML tag as a paired tag and also an inline element tag. Now, since you're learning how to do CSS styling, I can show you how to use the span tag. In section 2.3, you learned about the span tag, the opening and closing inline element. Let's say in a paragraph, you have one sentence that you want to change the color of the text. If you go and find the sentence, you will type in your left angle, type the HTML tag span, and then using the style tag, if you type in style equals quotation mark color colon space, and then get the hexadecimal color for the text color, and then close it out with the right angle, and then go to the end of the sentence and remember to close out your span tag. Only that sentence will have a change in color. Another thing to note too, when you're putting in the color, don't forget to put in your number sign in front of the hexadecimal color. To our web page, and we look at our web page, we can now see that one sentence where I used the span HTML tag with the style attribute to change the text color, change that text color to white. All right, in chapter 1, you learned how to use the EM paired tag to italicize a word or a phrase on a page. There is a style property value that you can use also when you want to make an entire section italic. You If you notice the difference between the two, if we go to the top, you're going to see the EM where it only italic 2 words. If I go down to the paragraph tag and add the styles equal font dash style colon space italic, it will italicize this entire page. When you want to do a section, then use your style property value. When it's just a word or a phrase, you're free to use the EM. If you put it in the paragraph tag, it will italic everything inside the paragraph tag, whereas the EM, you have a little bit more control over what you italicize. The same thing holds true for bolding. If you want an entire section bolded, you can use the style property tag. So if you go to the paragraph tag, you'll have style equals font weight colon space bold. Anything between the opening and closing paragraph tag will now be bolded. If you go back up and look at the strong tag, you know that you have more control using the strong tag. You can kind of pick and choose what you wanted bolded, whereas when you put it inside the paragraph tag, it will bold the entire tag. Now, you do not have to use bold when you're setting up heading style tags. Remember, they are already bolded. However, if you want them italic, you would have to use the font property value for italic in the heading tag. So if we look at our examples, at the top we have just the lorem ipsum in italics. That's where we use the EM tag. If you go down to the bottom part, you're going to see where we put in the paragraph tag with the property value. It italic the whole entire paragraph. The same thing is true for the bold. If we look at the bold, we're going to see that the paragraph itself is in complete bold, whereas the lorem ipsilon, when we use the strong tag, it is only on those 2 words. Which one you use depends on what results that you want. Using horizontal alignment to move objects. Horizontal alignment means that we can move our object so that it is left, center, right, or justified on a page. The default setting for horizontal alignment is left. So if you want something, you want your text left, then you don't have to worry about adding the style property for it. It will just do it automatically. The property value will be the style. The property name will be text-align colon space center. Sections, if you put a style tag with text-align center in the header or a section, it will center everything in the section. If you put it in just the HTML tag, it will center only the HTML tag. At this point in your coding understanding, to get an image to center, you must add the horizontal alignment to the section tag that it's in. Why? The text alignment property value only impacts text, so you kind of have to trick CSS to do what you want it to do, and by putting it into the section tag, you can get that done. So if I look at my div tag, my ID equals div1, I'm telling it that whatever is inside that section to go ahead and center that text. If you notice now, my image is centered. Adding borders to an object, the property value that you use is style. The property name would be border colon space 2 pixels space solid space and then the hexadecimal number. The 2 pixel stands for the size of the border. Solid is the type of border, and the hexadecimal will set the color of the border. We have just finished section 2-4. Now it's time to work on your 2-4 activity. Go to chapter 2 folder Open up the website called My First Web Page in Notepad++. Add the following property values into the web page. Make sure you add them correctly. Add the correct font family, font size, and color to the text and all of the headings on the page. Add the correct property values and names to the body tag. Use 5 pixel for the top and bottom margins and 150 pixel for right and left margins. Bold and italic using the style property value. Change the color of the mark tag and add the span tag to one sentence to change the color of the text in a paragraph. And then continue to the next slide for the remaining part of the 2-4 activity. E, change the font size of the heading 1 to 3 EM. F, change at least one div section so that it has background color. G, center a heading tag and the image. Add at least one border to at least one section tag. 3, save the document and launch it in Chrome. Check it out in 2 other browsers, and then check your coding in the HTML validator. Call me over to review your work when you are done. You are doing a great job. When you have just finished 2-4, when you have had your work reviewed, continue on with our final section, 2-5.